Hi, this is a quick video for the Stonepoint & Jones Bare Naked Shoulders top. I'm just going to go over quick where we're at and what we're going to do. This is where we started. The blue is the underarm, the pink is the armhole, the yellow is this first yellow is the chest, and there will be lattice that will go up here. Here's the next pink armhole. Here's the blue. The blue is the underarm, and here's the vent. Then we have the back armhole, which is more rows, and the back of the neck, which is less rows. So the back will be done in a similar fashion with just more rows in the armhole and less rows across the back. This is the back of the neck. And then this is the next tapered armhole where it tapers down, and we're making sure we're at our beginning stitch count. And this is all done in one piece. We don't cut and tie. We don't cut our yarn at all. This is just one continual piece. And then we're going to bring the front to the back. And I'm using orange here so that you can just see how I join the sides and continue on. I still haven't cut my yarn, and so if you have enough yarn, you're just going to continue on and do the whole trim. So it'll be the entire front and back and the trim without cutting your yarn. The rest of the time you won't have to sew, but you will have to cut your yarn. So make sure you have your beginning amount of stitches. This is my underarm row, and I'm doing a small, so there's only 2. So you'll have anywhere from 2 to 6 underarm rows. I'm only doing 2. So I'm going to do a quick join as you go, and I'm joining this to this. So this is my working side, the orange, and my joining side is the blue. So my last row, I'm going to stop 9 stitches to make the other vent. Remember, this vent was 9 stitches left open. This will be also. So 9 stitches from the bottom. We're not counting the top of the turning chain. We are counting this stitch. So we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can put a marker here so you don't go into the stitch. You just go to that stitch. And then it'll be the same on this. Will be 9 from the bottom. I changed yarn, so it's a little hard to tell, but it'll be the same thing. Let me get a stitch marker and do the same thing. Let's make this a different color. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right here. And we're just going to join it stitch to stitch, leaving 9 stitches open. Okay, so this, we're going to chain 2. We always do, get this in frame, we always do our working side first. We're going to make this row while slip stitching to this. So I did my chain 2, I'm going to slip stitch, but I'm going to go underneath so it makes less of a ridge, and do it that way. It's just kind of a quick way, and it'll blend in. You won't hardly see a seam there. And then I'm going to go back into my working side, and I'm going to half double crochet in the same stitch as the chain 2, and then I'm going to find my next stitch, which is a little hard, right in here. Now these are going to be a little tight because this is our beginning chain. And I'm going to slip stitch into there. Okay, and then half double crochet in my orange working side. And I mean, you can go this way and slip stitch, but I just, to give you another option, you can go in from the opposite way you would normally, and it'll make less of a seam ridge, and slip stitch and work your way down, joining finishing doing this side and then slip stitching into your very first beginning chain. Okay, and this is how this looks. This looks a little crazy because of the two colors, but I wanted you to see how this looks. And then you look on this side and there's no seam. You're going to be using the same color. So I will meet you down at the bottom. Okay, I am, oops, sorry about that. I am almost to, I'm sorry, not at the bottom. I am almost to my markers, leaving 9 stitches open. This is my 9th stitch and this is my 9th stitch, so I will go up to but not into those stitches. And the only hard part about this join as you go is remembering which is your working side, where you're still adding a row, and your joining side. And it's easy on this one, obviously, because of the different colors, but you'll be working with the same color, so it won't be easier. So I'm going to slip stitch into here, and you always do your working side. You always finish your stitch on your working side before you join. And these are just hard to get into. I've even, like for this one, moved down a hook and just crocheted my half double crochets loosely, and so I could get into this beginning chain a little bit easier. So I'm down to this part now, but remember I still have, and if you're off by 1, that's perfectly fine, depending on how you begin it. I'm off by 1, but these join up just fine, so I just finished this stitch. Now if you remember on the other side, the rest of the row was a chain. Anyhow, to match it up, we need to single crochet down our working side, which will be our back. So we're finishing this row and we're joining it to the front, the beginning chain, and then we're going to work down. We're going to work down this side. So we're not joining them anymore because we're leaving the 9 stitches open for the vent, and we're just going to single crochet loosely down these 9 stitches, leaving this open for the vent, these 9 stitches, and this will mimic that chain that we did, that chain 11 where we turned on our first vent. So this is our second vent. So single crocheting down these 9 stitches. Now we're going to turn a corner. This is just where now we're on the back. We're going along the back. To turn a corner, when you hit this corner, you're going to chain 1. Oh, I'm sorry. When you hit this corner, this is the unusual part. When you hit this corner, this is your chain 2 turning chain. We're only going to be working in those. So every other row will have a chain 2. And that way, and we're going to work 3 stitches in every single one of them. So that means we're going to be working 3 stitches for every 2 vertical rows. So these are our vertical rows. These are a chain 2. This is a half double crochet. This is a chain 2. We want to put 3 single crochets in each one, and these are going to make our arches. So that's 1, 2, 3. Now I would suggest and then we have a nice cute corner. So these are going to make arches. So we find the next one. We don't want to go into our half double crochets. We want to find our chain 2 turning chain. So it's going to be every other row, and we just go right into the next one and put 3 single crochets. Now the only thing that that you can do, and that's why I pointed these out throughout, is accidentally go into the half double crochet, which is here. This right here is the chain. This here is the chain 2, and so you're just skipping over every row and you're going into the entire space and putting 3 single crochets, creating pretty arches along the bottom. And we're going to go all the way across. So you don't just kind of look every other row. They will not go in every row. They're going to go in every other row, and they're going to create these arches. And this is how we want this to look. So go across the entire bottom, looking for the, see, here's a chain 2 space, and this is a half double crochet right here. And then mine is very loose, so it's kind of hard to see, but this is a half double crochet. Here's your chain 2 space. So we're going, it's every other row that we're putting in these arches. So I will meet you over here at this chain 2 space. Okay, here's my obnoxious colors back. So I have crocheted 3 single crochets basically at the end of every other vertical row in the chain 2 spaces. Now in this last one, we're going to put 3 single crochets because it's a chain 2 space. Okay, and then now we're going to begin making more arches, a lattice type of arches. So we have to make a half a one here, and then the next row of arches will be a full one. So we have to make a half a one. So just chain 2, turn, and then let me show you. Chain 2 and turn, and then you're going to single crochet into this very first. This is the same as the chain 2 into this first stitch right here. Single crochet and we're making a half of a loop right here. This is going to be a half of an arch. So now we're going to chain 2, and we're going to single crochet into the middle or the center stitch of each arch. So single crochet, chain 2, and then let me let you look, and then single crochet into the middle stitch of this arch. You see this arch, the middle stitch, or you just skip 2. And as long as you started off with your partial loop, here, and then you started off into the center one, if you skip 2, you'll stay into the center one. So chain 2, skip 2, single crochet into the center or middle stitch, and continue doing that. These are basically mesh stitches, but we're going to be putting 3 single crochets in each one to make a lattice. So chain 2 and single crochet, skip 2, chain 2, single crochet in the middle of each arch all the way across, and I will meet you here. Here I am at the end. Oh, let me stop everything. The dogs bumped it. Here I'm at the end of the row, and here's my 3 single crochets, and I'm at the end of the row, and here would be my center one, and then I need to chain 1, and in the very last stitch, and it's hard to get to, single crochet. So I made a partial loop right there, and you'll be able to see it better on yours. Mine is a little tough to see. All right, so chain 1 and turn, and then find this partial loop right here, your first partial loop. It's a half loop, it's kind of a chain 1 loop, and go inside and put 2 single crochets. So we made a half of a lattice. Now in the rest of the loops, put in the rest of the 2 chain loops, put in 3 single crochets. So it's just like any rectangle that you would make with these type of brick stacks. You're going to have a half a one every other row, and then this last one will be a whole row. So put 3 single crochets in each of the chain 2 spaces all the way across. I will meet you right here. Okay, I'm at the other side, and I've done my 3 single crochets in each of the chain 2 loops. Now I have this partial one here that's a chain 1 single crochet, and just find that as best you can. It's easier to see on mine, but you'll be able to find it. Look for that chain 1 single crochet and then put 2 single crochets in it. That's our partial. Okay, now then chain 2, 1, 2, and when you turn it, chain 2, and then skip 2 and then single crochet into the middle stitch of that arch. So let me get this turned over so you can see. And all I did was chain 2 and created an arch just like the one we started off with here. I chained 2 and I single crocheted into the very next arch. So let's do this again. I'll do it slow. I chain 2, 1, 2. I will skip 2, which is the center of the arch from the previous row, and I will single crochet into that middle stitch. I will chain 2, I will skip 2, 1, 2, and single crochet into that center middle stitch of the next arch. Do that all the way across again. And this will be our last row of lattice. Now if we don't go back through and put 3 single crochets in, I'm referring to it as a mesh stitch. But when we go back and put the 3 single crochets in, it makes these really pretty arches like in the lattice. And we'll use these stitches, we'll carry over these stitches into the sleeves and also up at the chest and neck areas. So this mesh and lattice pattern will be carried on throughout all parts of the top. And it's just kind of one of my favorite things to do. It gives it a little bit of a vintage Victorian looking flair at the same time as makes it really consistent. Okay, so at the very end you're going to skip 2 stitches, and the very last stitch you're just going to single crochet into that stitch. You're going to then chain 1 and turn, and then just as you'd imagine, you're going to put 3 single crochets in every chain 2 space and all the way across. And that is the end of the trim on the back, or the lattice part on the back. And see how this squares it off really nicely. This is what we're trying to do, is make a really nice straight edge. Now after you follow the directions for the front, or for the back, we're working on the back, there's going to be a couple more rows on the back. Then when it says work down the rows just made, you're going to have more rows up here. You're going to work down them into the vent, and you're going to work along the vent and back up over this side, and then you're going to put the same trim. This is the front. You're going to put the same trim on the front. This is a bottom hem front. Then you're going to work along those, and then you're going to end by you're going to have single crochets, and then you're going to have slip stitches along the 9 stitches, slip stitch along here, and then the part that was added on to, you're going to have single crochets along there and then slip stitches along the final trim. So that's pretty easy. I just want to give you a little quick heads up. This is a really fun thing to do. It goes fast and it makes a really nice trim. Bye.